Councillor, okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Regional Development Assessor Panel meeting of the 30th of April. My name's Tony Arias, and I'm the presiding member. I'll introduce the other panel members: Lindsay Baxter, who's the deputy presiding member, and Jason Hick, who's the specialist member. In relation to Part B, we have Councillor Balcombe representing local government, representing the Shire of Gingin, and Councillor Johnson, also local government member representing the Shire of Gingin. DAP Secretariat, we have Tennille Brownfield, who's Minute Secretary, and Claire Ortlett, Governance. We also have from the Shire of Gingin, James Bayliss, who's the Manager Planning. With that, I will formally declare the meeting open and acknowledge the traditional owners and pay respects to elders past and present of the land which the meeting is being held. The meeting will be run in accordance with DAP Standing Orders 2024. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering information that's been provided. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the Planning Development Assessment Panel Regulations. Item 2, apologies, we have nil. Item 3, members on leave of absence, we have nil. Item 4, noting of minutes, just for information that minutes of previous meetings are on the DAP website. We move to Part B, Shire of Gingin. Item 1 is declarations of due consideration. Members, I require you to confirm and declare that you have duly considered the information that's been provided within Part B and Part B of additional information. If you're able to raise your hand to confirm that. Johnson?
Yes, I'm up to date with it all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Or duly declared. Thank you. Disclosures of interest. We have 2 disclosures, one from Councillor Johnson and one from Councillor Balcombe, and the impartiality interest. And the reason for the disclosures is that the item that we are considering this morning went to a council meeting on 5th of March. Both Councillor Johnson and Councillor Balcombe have declared that they are not bound by that decision of council and can consider the matter with impartiality. Councillors, just for the meeting, can you please both confirm that that is the case, that you're able to, that you're not bound by the council decision and you can consider the matter with impartiality?
Yes, Councillor Johnson here. Yes, I can do that. Thank you.
Councillor Balcombe?
Yes, I confirm that. Yeah, sorry, we were having technical problems here, but yes, I confirm what you said, that I can make an impartiality.
Thank you for that confirmation. Members, any late disclosures? No? Thank you. So we move to item 3, which is Form 1 DAP applications, and item 3.1, which is Carrakin Lakes Road and Brumber Road. It's for a plantation carbon farm. We have 2 presenters. Just to remind the presenters that you do have 3 minutes, which is not a lot of time. Following the presentations, there will be an opportunity for questions. So I would encourage presenters to focus on what they consider the most important part of the presentation. I would also, the various documentations that form part of the presentations have been circulated to members as well. So they'd be aware of that. So Gareth, Parry? Yeah.
If it's okay, I might present first. My name's Bill.
No problem, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
So that's Bell, isn't it?
Bill, that's
Yeah,
right.
Bell Smithies.
Yes, perfect. Good morning, panel members and staff. Thank you for having us today. So yes, my name is Bell Smithies. I'm a senior town planner at Row Group. And we also have today Gareth Parry from Woodside Energy is also presenting, as well as other members of the project team from Woodside and Tire Fire and Row Group to assist with answering questions. So the proposed land use at such a large scale is fairly novel, at least around the Gingin area. We tested the planning framework on tree farms in quite a lot of detail, particularly around managing bushfire risk. So there was a confluence of factors that led to this application being somewhat of a learning curve for all involved. The highest order planning document that provides guidance on tree farms is State Planning Policy 2.5, which is rural planning. SPP 2.5 is fairly absent in detail, although the rural planning guidelines do provide some additional guidance. In 2023, the WAPC Tree Farms fact sheet was released to provide greater clarity on SPP 2.5 with up-to-date specific guidance. SPP 2.5 supports and encourages tree farming due to their economic and environmental benefits, whilst outlining a range of matters to be considered. As the RDAP states, the primary consideration for this application is managing bushfire risk. SPP 2.5 states that tree farming should generally be permitted use on rural land, except where it would create an extreme or unacceptable bushfire risk. The framework doesn't define extreme or unacceptable risk, nor does it provide clear guidance on how to assess this. It does, however, point to other policies and documents for guidance. The guidelines point to SPP 3.7, planning in bushfire-prone areas, and the BNP was prepared to address this. However, we recognise that SPP 3.7 is mainly concerned with protection from external bushfire threat, rather than mitigating risk resulting from development. The fact sheet states that all tree farms should accord with the DFS guidelines for plantation fire protection. The Plantation Management Plan, or PMP, was developed in accordance with the guidelines and then expanded upon following discussions with the Shire alongside significant design changes. Importantly, the PMP now includes a dedicated bushfire mitigation plan, a bushfire emergency response plan, and a proposed mosaic burn plan prepared by Tire Fire. We recognise that a degree of discretion is required in assessing the bushfire risk, but having regard for each of these policies and guidelines, the updated design and PMP, and the feedback from the Shire, we do not believe this development will cause an unreasonable or extreme bushfire risk. We therefore consider the development to be consistent with SPP 2.5, and our views on this have been affirmed in the RAR. Throughout this process, we worked with the Shire to explore and resolve issues, obtained input from a wide range of stakeholders, and made significant design changes as a result. Ultimately, we've been able to provide the Shire with the comfort that it needed to now recommend approval. The scrutiny of this development won't conclude with an approval in hand. There will be continuous, regular opportunities to monitor, review, and amend the bushfire mitigation measures throughout the life of the development. This is codified in many of the draft conditions. We are comfortable with all proposed conditions and don't consider them too onerous, as they effectively formalise the ongoing monitoring, reviews, and consultation that Woodside had always intended to undertake. We thank the Shire for its collaboration and its support, and we respectfully request the panel also provide support in approving this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Don't leave the chair just yet. Members, questions of Bell?
No, Councillor Johnston, do you know, Mr. Arias, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Balcom?
Hello. Sorry, we're having trouble hearing because the presenter's microphone is muted. Can they unmute that microphone when they're presenting, please? I did hear it, but it was very, very low, and I have read the documentation. So no questions, but just letting you know that the presenter's microphone is muted.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll ask the next presenter to talk a bit more loudly. Members, any other questions? Just, Bell, one, obviously the application is for the entire site.
That's right.
And it may be a response from Gareth.
Sure.
I presume the development is going to be staged.
Probably a question for Gareth.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he'll be able to speak to that in more detail.
Perhaps foreshadow that.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. If there's no other questions, thank you for the
Thanks very much.
presentation. Gareth?
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay, Councillor?
Yes,
that's
thank you.
I'll do my best. So good morning. Thanks for having us here. My name is Gareth Barry. I look after land assets and business development for carbon at Woodside Energy. We're really pleased to present a submission in support of the proposed development today. Important to say firstly, we really acknowledge the consultation with the Shire Planning Manager, James Bayliss, Community Emergency Services Manager, Phil Barrett, and the Mitigation Burn Coordinator, Evan Lawrence, for what Bella said is a novel project, both in setting and size. The consultations have allowed us to tailor our application and the supporting management plans to fit within the state and Shire planning policy. Public submissions in response for the public submission period were largely supportive of the project. Some landowners adjacent to the property have noticed that the property is really well suited to a native tree planting and as non-priority ag land is not supportive of high value agriculture. We've been really fortunate in meeting a lot of these neighbours. We've met the Cowler, Nilgan, Volunteer Fire Brigade, who are actually lease premises on our land, the Seaview Park Association, as well as other members of the public through the DA consultation process. These neighbours appear supportive and interested in the proposed project. The single objection related to beekeeping activities, we host a commercial beekeeper on the site. We'll continue to work with them. The design in terms of the species are cognizant of ongoing beekeeping. Feedback from the Community Emergency Service Management Team, Chief Bushfire Officer and Bushfire Mitigation Officer, and the Shire of Gingin Bushfire Advisory Committee highlighted areas of the proposed project that required specific bushfire mitigation. These have, as Bell said, there's been significant modifications in the design and the management plan. I'm just going to touch on the 5 sort of high points in terms of those design mitigations we've brought in during this consultation. First one is the plantation cell design allows ongoing access between and within the planting cells, which unlike native bush facilitates easier access and a broader set of plantation management strategies. We have large north-south orientated hazard separation zones on the eastern and western boundaries of the property, which are designed in cell sizes smaller than 30 hectares with lower ground fuel load tolerances and more intense fuel measurement and reduction activities. We have a number of high mineral earth zones orientated north-south across the site, designed to be grazed to further reduce ground fuel assessment. We're conditioned around annual qualitative fuel load assessments and fuel reduction activities based on these assessments include inter-row weed management, mosaic mitigation burning. Finally, Woodside has a proud 70-year history of operating in WA for over 40 years. We've done a lot of these projects since 2019 across the site, about 5,000 hectares a year at the moment. We work really hard to be a good neighbour, and we think we've sustained that across our sites to date. There's no reason why we're not going to be able to continue that with the current project. And lastly, I'd like to thank the Shire of Gingin for their recommendation in the RAR. We really look forward to continuing to work with them and the team at the Shire of Gingin. We believe the proposed project, I'd even say we're really excited about the proposed project and the value that we think it can bring in diversity to the Shire without increasing bushfire risk to the community to an unacceptable level. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. Members, questions? Ms Baxter?
I do, thank you, Lindsay Baxter. Thank you, Gareth. From the time of planting, how long does it take for there to be a meaningful carbon offset, and how is that measured?
Thanks for the question. I'll probably defer some of these questions because we have a really good panel here of people. Generally, so our carbon expert is Ollie at the back. The sequestration starts immediately as the plants start to draw in CO2 from the atmosphere and put it into secondary growth, Precambrian growth into the top of the tree. I'll let Ollie talk about the crediting.
Yeah, so our project...
you might,
have to
go to the microphone.
I'll shuffle over.
We're going to have a hot seat.
So for quick context, our project will have a 25-year crediting period and we'll submit our first offset report to the regulator in year 3, where we will, according to modelling, generate credits in that 3rd year.
Right, so let me just capture that. So you do your first report within 3 years?
Yes.
At 3 years, okay. And how do you measure the carbon offset?
So we'll measure the carbon offset through a software called FullCam, and that's a base of canopy cover and stems per hectare. So to get a carbon credit for the whole project within 25 years needs to meet a stage of 20%.
Yeah, okay. And then, and you mentioned the ACCU, does that sort of satisfy it straight away? Like, does this planting start to satisfy your ACCU almost straight away? Or is it a bit of a phase in, I guess?
So the 20% canopy cover checkpoint has to happen at year 25. So we projected to meet that at what year exactly? Do you know off the top of your head?
The peak that you meant, you're talking about the peak
Yeah,
of the
the
sequestration. It's about year 7 or 8 that you're starting to hit your maximum.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
To clarify, we award credits based on carbon stock in our project.
Yeah,
So we won't get them all in year 7.
Yeah.
thank you.
Gareth, I asked a question earlier about staging. Can you sort of clarify that?
Yeah, so generally, when we acquire a property, we purchased this property last year. We plan out how the plantation is going to be phased based on the condition of the paddocks. We have a look at the weed load in particular areas on this site. That's quite relevant. There's quite a high load of African lovegrass on the site, which is difficult to plant in. Volatile, and is a real nutrient robber for the trees that go in. So there's a portion, I think it's around 700 hectares of the property are in that order. Everyone's nodding over there, which is great, which will be delayed to planting in 2025. And we use that delay to manage that biomass down to an acceptable level for a number of reasons, to reduce gear entanglement for site preparation and also reduce the overall numbers so that we're not dealing with what is quite an aggressive weed across the Shire actually and across Western Australia, to try and reduce that fuel load as much as possible. We generally try and do as much as we can as early as possible is our philosophy, because this is a scaled planting. We have stock running through the nursery. It's about 2 million seedlings, is that correct, Nick? So we have 2 million seedlings that are ready to go. If you're not doing something on an area of farm, you have to manage it. So we want to reduce the amount of chemicals we use. So we get the plants in there as quickly as possible and they start to get on top of everything else. Yeah. So,
which leads to another question in terms of, obviously, one of the significant issues that has been raised in the RAR is about fire management.
Yeah.
Now, given you're going to plant 2 million seedlings, there is going to be some time before there is an increased fire risk, and you put management measures in place. Is that so? How do you sort of plan for that?
Yeah, fire risk is an interesting mix of. I mean, the recent fires that occurred in Hawaii, most of the inquiries have found that it's actually perennial and annual grasses that were in unmanaged sugarcane areas that were actually the cause of the chief concern on there in terms of load. So I wouldn't want the panel to have the impression that putting larger trees on there with stock caught in a large trunk is actually, it does increase some fuel loads potentially in the area, but it's not as volatile nor as accessible potentially as some of the annuals that are on site currently. So I think the sites generally are managed down to as low a biomass as possible before the planting. And then as the seedlings go in, we manage that inter-row growth of annual and perennial grasses until the trees start to drought them out. At which point we will start using the fuel load mitigation activities that we have in the plantation management plan to manage those down. So it's sort of, and it's a paddock by paddock proposition. It really depends how the land responds to the treatment.
Okay, thank you. Members, other questions?
Yes, Mr. Arias, if I could, Councillor Johnson here. Just following up on that question, I'm assuming, which could be right or wrong, that because of the fuel loads being adjusted since the first area in the management plan, that will help, will it not, with lessening the fire risk or spreading it out of the paddocks?
That's correct, Councillor. I might actually ask Gavin to come up and talk a little bit about some of those areas.
Just to introduce myself, Gavin from Entire. Basically, yes, so we've put a limit on the tonnage per hectare. That includes perennial grasses and stuff like that to manage that fire risk down to an acceptable level. And that's about the best we can do and measure it each year and adjust our mitigation strategies per each block, if you like, each cell.
Thank you.
So, Gavin, can you clarify your bushfire?
Yes.
Yeah, and your level of certification?
Okay, so I'm level 2.
Yeah.
However, this is more operational than the planning.
Yeah.
So the bushfire management plan was prepared by level 3, Mike Scott. This is the operational side and all the operational works.
So the bushfire management plan is prepared by
level 3.
Level 3. Okay. Yeah. All right. No, I understand that. Any other questions? Just Gareth, you mentioned in your introduction that Woodside's done a number of these. So how long is that? And can you sort of cite sort of successful?
Yeah, so we've supported carbon offsets projects since about 2008. We did a large offsets program for our Pluto business unit. That was an earlier kind of incantation, I guess, of the offsets program. We've been managing these directly through the bulk of the team we have here today since 2019. So that includes sort of land screening, which we're extremely careful about the properties that we put our feet on. So we have a very rigorous process for having a look at agricultural value, looking at nearby receptors and what we're going to do with those sites. We would have screened hundreds of properties and we've purchased around 15. So I think we've been extremely successful in identifying properties where this is a good fit in terms of activity. We convert on what it'll have to be difficult about cognizant of what's in the public domain at the moment. I think our climate report says we've done about 5,000 hectares per year for the last 3 years. We've learnt a lot, particularly the early projects, about getting on top of management on land really early on and making sure we're getting on top of, for example, things like biomass loads. We're getting around 70 to 80% success in terms of the planting, if that's where the question was coming from. We're getting quite good at doing those little 1%ers, 2%ers like you do in agricultural activities to take advantage of the wet seasons and this season, which is looking significantly drier. And neighbours are generally very supportive of us. We've actually subdivided 2 or 3 properties now where we've sold down the better agricultural land on there. So we've identified areas that are croppable, for example, and we've subdivided and sold that to a neighbour who then help us out, keeping an eye on things and giving us intel on the local area, weather conditions and so on. So I think we've been successful. Most people are pretty happy to have us in the area. We're getting our first credits, our ACCUs coming through from our 2019 on projects this year. We're expecting to get those. So yeah, I think the team's extremely passionate. I think everyone that's involved really enjoys the job. It's nice to be putting something back into the landscape in Western Australia, and we think getting these properties to a higher and better use. Yeah.
Thank you. Members, last opportunity for questions. No?
No, I'm good.
No? Gareth, thank you. No? Councillor Balcombe, you didn't propose a question?
I'm good, thank you. We're back here. We had a power outage again. We've got 6 fires in the Shire at the moment. So as you can see, that fires are significant with lightning strikes. So yeah, I'm hoping that the bushfire plan will come to attrition, and they will do the best they can to not cause any more issues in our community.
I don't think that was a question, but so.
Sorry. No, that's okay. I've got no question.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Gareth. We now move to the Shire and Gingin offices, and as I said earlier, we've got James Bayless here. James, do you want to grab the chair? Obviously, it's an opportunity for members to ask questions, James, but do you want to make any sort of comments about the application generally?
No, presiding member, I think the previous presenters have sort of covered off on it sufficiently.
Okay.
So happy for any questions.
Members, questions of Mr. Bayless?
Councillor Johnson here. Yes, Mr. Arias. basically, Mr. Bellis, I'm taking that from the draft area that council voted on. There has been substantial amendments to the plan and etc. And to me, it seems to be a really good an exercise in cooperation between the applicants and yourself and Phil Barrett, etc. Yeah, I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Attention. A test of the building's emergency warning system is about to take place. This is a test only. No action is required by general staff. I repeat, no action is required by general staff.
Well, that's reassuring. We don't have to vacate.
Do you want to just let everyone know, we might put ourselves on mute just for the time the emergency warnings are coming over? Yeah, and we'll just pause.
The first tone you will hear is that alert tone.
Hmm. If I may, through the chair, Councillor Johnson here, the sound seems to have gone.
Yeah, sorry about that, Councillor Johnson. So we've just had a fire alarm test in the
Could
building.
wardens from level 2 to 6 please attend your stables and pick up the big phone and wait for the chief warden to respond.
Sorry, everyone. We've just had the fire alarm test in the building, so we thought we'd put ourselves on. Yeah, so nothing's happened and we're ready to pick back off from Tony.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought I'd gone deaf.
No. So Councillor Johnson and Councillor Balcombe, you haven't missed anything other than listening to the protocols for the fire alarm here.
Thank you.
So, James, just a question about the conditions and more particularly the bushfire management plan. Gareth talked about mitigation measures, additional mitigation. So is that captured in the current bushfire management plan? Or does that need to be amended?
Through the chair, my understanding is that would be captured in the plantation management plan as opposed to the bushfire management plan. Just confirm that.
Yeah, there wasn't any additional information put in.
So condition 3 does say bushfire management plan, then it uses the words or amended. So it could capture that if that was the intent.
Yeah, through the chair, the reason for that is because the revised BMP has not been referred back to DFIS, and I would intend to do so. So that's why the term or as amended has been inserted to provide that opportunity to get DFIS comments on the revised information.
Okay. And you're satisfied condition 3 covers any potential response from DFIS?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. Members, any other questions of Mr. Bayliss?
No.
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 All right, James, thank you. So, members, we now move to the actual item, and we've got a recommendation to approve with conditions. Is someone prepared to move the report recommendation? Ms. Baxter? And is there a seconder for that?
Yes.
Councillor
Yes.
Belko?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms Baxter, do you want to talk to the motion?
I do, thank you, presiding member. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Shire officers and the proponents for working through the issues that arose during the assessment of this application, with the final outcome being a recommendation for approval. It is certainly more satisfying as a panel member to approve an application than to refuse. The application is for a significant native species plantation.
Your attention, please. The building emergency warning tests have now been completed. Thank you for your cooperation.
The application is for a significant native species plantation to offset carbon. It is noted that several different species of native vegetation are proposed, which avoids a monoculture, especially in an area of poor soil. It does, however, strike me rather odd that in seeking to recreate what probably existed in the year 1787, planning approval is required. Nevertheless, it is. The land is zoned general rural in the Shire's local planning scheme, and it is for a use that the panel can exercise discretion to approve. As well as local planning considerations, there are several state planning policies that must be given consideration in relation to the proposed use, and these have been applied in the assessment of the proposal. Most significantly, the bushfire risk. I'm satisfied that the documents that I've read, that this has been satisfactorily addressed by the proponent and the Shire. Indeed, the salient consideration is on page 17 of the Responsible Authority report, which refers to the design and layout of the plantation, low fuel zones, and the proposed fire management regime. Having given consideration to all the information provided, I'm prepared to support the application. I do foreshadow 2 modifications to the recommendation for conditions, just for accuracy and completeness. I might raise those now if I can.
Sure.
Condition 3 just requires a typographical error to be corrected, where it says the bushfire management plan. That word should be plan. And in condition 5, where there's an abbreviation of PMP, it would be my preference that that abbreviation is in full. It should say plantation management plan.
Ms Baxter, I'm happy for the motion to be changed to reflect that. I think they're administrative matters. Councillor Balcombe, would you accept those 2 points being addressed as part of the substantial motion?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. All right. So we'll deal with those administratively. Councillor Balcombe, did you want to make comments on the motion?
No, I'm happy with the motion.
Okay. Is anyone opposed to the motion and wanting to speak to it? Anyone else wanting to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. If I can speak to the motion, having regard to the Responsible Authority report that has been presented to us today, and also the motion that's been moved, I'm supportive of the motion and therefore the recommendation that has been put to us in the Responsible Authority report. I think it's been spoken to quite articulately by the mover, but however, I suppose just the particular considerations I wanted to highlight is from a land use point of view, there is discretion to consider the land use, and in this particular case, note that while has been indicated that this is maybe a novel land use in this location, not so novel in other locations for different plantation outcomes. However, in this particular location and sense, I think the particular discretion has been highlighted. Well, it needs to be tended towards bushfire considerations. What has been presented to us today is a clear indication that that has been both considered in the design of the proposal and the ongoing management of the proposed land use, which are then reflected in the recommended conditions. And note that the operational elements of the bushfire risk management are key. And while in agricultural settings that as mentioned before, that it's definitely not something that is bushfire risk isn't something that is absent in agricultural or rural settings. However, often dealt with through other land management practices, grazing and the like. And in this case, I think a nuanced and specific response has been required that's suitable and appropriate to the proposed use, which I having reviewed the documentations, I believe that has been provided, and would probably note that while maybe referenced as being novel, this may be a type of use either for carbon or for even potentially biodiversity that we may see more of. So on that basis, I'm happy to support the motion and the recommendation that's been put to us.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Johnson, did you want to make any comment, or you're happy to?
I'm happy with the outcome. But I just am in full support of what's just been said. It's Thank you.
I will also be supporting the motion. As some of the other speakers have indicated, from a planning framework, I think the local planning framework and the state planning framework provides discretion for the panel to approve. In terms of state framework, it recognises the opportunity for this sort of land use to be probably an increasing use. As Ms. Bax has indicated, it's interesting that this panel often considers development applications that are seeking to remove vegetation. And this is something that is seeking to not necessarily reinstate a natural environment, but it's, I think, from a vegetation perspective, a positive outcome. So I'm prepared to support it. I think in terms of fire management, it is a significant issue, but I think it's been approached in a methodical and appropriate way by both the Shire and by the proponent. So I'm comfortable that, subject to the conditions that are proposed, that fire management will be addressed as required. So on that basis, prepared to support the motion. Ms. Baxter, closing remarks?
Thank you. I don't really have anything further to add, but thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve subject to conditions. Members, all those in favour?
Stephen, yes.
Yep, okay, thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you, members. Just in finishing off the balance of the agenda, Part C, other business. Item 1, SAT applications and Supreme Court appeals. They're listed on the agenda. Item 2, general business. Members, is there any general business wanted to raise? No?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Johnson here. Look, may I apologise for my late arrival due to the power cut in Seaburn.
No problem. Duly noted. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you.
And item 3, meeting closure. Thank you everyone for your participation this morning. And I declare the meeting closed at 10:15. Thank you.